Rosemary. So one thing I do want to tell you about, so the energy thing makes sense. When I was a kid, I didn't do the one with my fingertips, but there was one that my mother told me about when I was a kid, which I thought she was just kind of crazy. Like, you know what? She watched that show like Kung Fu, Kwai Chain Cane or whatever, like back in the day. I thought she was just like being trippy, but she said to me when I was a kid that you can collect energy and feel it in your hands. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you need to show me. So she did this thing, which she had me mimic and do, which is where you kind of reach out really wide and you just slowly gather energy. And I thought she was crazy until I tried it. And after, a few minutes of doing it, I can actually feel resistance between my hands. Like I was holding like an energy ball, almost like, Dragon Ball Z to your point.
Yeah.
And that was a big wow factor to me where I started to look at the universe and everything around me as energy. And, fortunately for me as a kid, like I had my mother as kind of like that spiritual guide that talked about these things that most people would be oblivious to their entire life.
Yeah.
So you need that great awakening, so to speak.
Yeah, because, people don't grow up with that in their life. I didn't, I had to self-discover a lot of things. I just grew up with a dad who was a mechanic, and he was a mechanic. And that was, your typical hardworking mechanic dad, dirty. But yeah, I mean, I've seen people at my kitchen table do it, where they've gone like this, and then you just keep going like this. Literally just this.
Yeah.
And then at some point you'll feel it kind of along here, and you can feel the outside of your ball. And then you're like, okay, there's the ball. And then once you connect your body to that, like more in tune, and it's almost like none of this exists. You're only tuned into this. And then as they do it, you can put something round, something
almost like a pedestal or something.
Yeah, you could put
it
like,
on there?
well, you could put, say, like, I have stones that are round and can roll. Something that's movable, but you would need force to start moving it.
Gotcha.
Right? So then you start going like this.
Okay.
And the thing in the middle starts moving. Right? And you're like, oh,
so you can see something physically moving?
Yeah. So I have a little quartz. I have a quartz, and then I have a crystalline, just a sphere, right? It's like a ball. And I can set it here. It's not going to roll anywhere, right? I can blow air. It might, move a little, it's whatever. But I'm going to go way out here. Well, there's no air pushing it, right? So it shouldn't move, really. If I hit the table, it might shake a little bit, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, if I go like this, and then I close my eyes, well, I can feel in these fingers a lot. Imagine this finger pulling it now. And it's in your head, and you're connecting it to the energy. So I can sit and do energy work on you. I can pull a string out your belly button, unravel your anxiety, if you will. And I can pull it, and you will feel it.
Wow. It'll
feel like you're going, but gentle.
That's incredible.
It is the strangest, coolest, intuitive thing in the world. But watching people do it and then creating it, you're just honing your energy to it. You're focusing on it. Just like we talked about earlier, if you only think of Toyota cars, you're only going to see Toyota cars. If you only think of red Crayola crayons, every time you're going to search for the green one, you're like, oh, there's only red ones. You're only going to see the red ones. The M&Ms, oh, there's only green ones. Well, there's not only green ones, and you're only seeing them, and it's annoying you to the point. But if you just focused on this, that's all your energy was focused on. You're starting to shut off the energy going to the rest of the things. So now think of it like turning all your light switch off, or closing all the vents in your car. That's a good one. And leaving one vent open.
Now it's pushing a lot
harder. So all that force is just coming through one vent versus all the vents. So you're shutting down some vents in your body that don't need to be used really right now. Just like when you fast, right? It shuts down certain parts of your body that don't really need to be used right now. And that's okay. You don't need it right now. It's overworked probably most of the time anyways. It's okay to take a little nap.
Yeah.
So as we're turning off all these switches in our body and we're honing in to just this, only this is real to me right now. So if that's the only thing that's real to me right now, That's where all my energy is going to be. You're going to have the most energy there then that you could possibly put there, and you're going to feel it the most, and you're going to push it the most. So you're able to harness it more, acknowledge it more, and do more with it, the more you put your energy towards it. Mm-hmm. Just like anything else. You're going to be more successful if you put your energy towards something you love versus something you don't love. Well, it's not going to grow because you hate it. Yeah. You scream at a plant all day, it's not going to grow. You love the plant and you forgot to water it, it's still going to live somehow. Yeah. It's just very simple. When you just break it down to energy, it's most things in life start making sense.
So I do have a question. So when you're talking about the ball on the table, and I've kind of seen this in like you and your energy healing and stuff like that. So when somebody closes their eyes, and now they're like visualizing it without their eyes, is part of the manifestation like supported by using like your head or your brain versus using your eyes? I know I may not have like worded that the best way, but
so to put that into a wider perspective of how my brain already sees what you're saying is, I know I have like I call it a spider web brain. It's crazy. Because once you see certain things, you can't unsee it, right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
Once you think of something a certain way, there's no possible other way to see it because that just exists. So that's kind of how my brain is. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not. So to answer the question, worded it kind of weird. When you shut your thought process off is the goal. You're shutting pretty much your ego off.
Okay.
Think of it that way. And those don't know your ego, that's like your want. Think of it that way. If you've seen Inside Out, it's I need this, I want that. We have to do this. We got to do that. Where it's like your anxiety working with it, right? Your ego is kind of telling you and guiding you, and it's working with your like consciousness of awesomeness going, is that right? I don't know. And it's trying to determine what's best for you, right? And you either built your ego to be awesome, or you built it to be stubborn, or you built it to be this, right? Based on your life experience. So your goal, some people, it's easier to shut that off because they don't have as much anxiety. That's a bunch of stuff going on at the same time and a bunch of electro waves going through. It's harder to calm that, right? Because we have more frequency. So it's not bad. It's just harder to calm it or settle it because there's so many thought processes going down. So once you shut that off, you close your eyes and you go inward and you realize, if you will, use easy words, the magic occurs through the frequency. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to keep going back to that because if we're all connected like a little spider web, right? And what I'm thinking is somehow affecting you, and because it's affecting the room, so it's affecting your life. Well, doesn't that mean my thoughts affecting Joe's life in Wisconsin and Susan's life in California and Johan's in Mexico and, Joe Schmo that lives in Russia?
Yeah.
Isn't that still true?
So is that like the principle of like string theory? Everything's connected?
So, string.
Yeah. That's kind of what I got when you're talking about the belly button. Being able to pull a little string out.
Yep. So like if you think of anything, right? You're creating it, you're manifesting it, right? So if you break that down, okay, so your thought is manifesting it. You're doing just the actions, but your thought started it, right? And if I know animals can talk without talking, and I know plants are communicating without talking, and I know rocks somehow are communicating, not sure how, but they are, right? Because they are all broken down sediment of what? Shells and stuff, living things. So
they're all connected.
They got a bunch of thoughts, So why do you think a rock grounds you the most? It's got like so much. It's got years of water that probably went through it, which carries memories and overflows it. And it's been like that for like millions of trillions of years to create that. Like how much knowledge is in that one rock? Because memory is energy, which cannot be, again, destroyed nor anything else. So it is harnessed, if you will, in the rock, in the ground. So that one little rock is going to ground you so much because it has so much stuff in it.
So, I do like to be punny sometimes and kind of look at commonalities, but, I guess the rock is the original hard drive.
Yeah, really. And if you look at our thought process in our DNA, it is zeros and ones and random nines.
Yeah.
So everything is digital, but it isn't. Mm-hmm. That's why they say go offline. He went offline. Not literally offline, like a cell phone. You're hardwired. You're connected to a system. Mm-hmm. And to think you're not is just the silliest thing in the world. To think you're not interconnected with anything else that's living on the same planet as you. Okay, think it. Great. Awesome. That's your world. But in my reality of world, that is very much not true. And I've proven it to myself in my own reality and everybody else around me, right? I mean, you can just read a couple books here and there and see that. So I already know that I'm interconnected with everything. So I need to watch my thought, right? So it's not even just watch what you say. No, you need to watch what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
Because you might be telling somebody, have a blessed day. But what's that karmic thought in your head? Karma is your own thing. You're creating your own negativity, right? So somebody else can wish the worst upon you, but until you believe it, it ain't going to happen. That's why we see so many negative people that don't have bad stuff happen to them. Well, they didn't believe they were doing anything negative. They thought everything was for the greater good. Mm-hmm. So they just have the best health. They live to be 110 somehow. And, how did that terrible person grow to be this healthy person to 110? And he did all these negative things, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's I often wonder that.
Yep. Everyone's question's always that. Why did the good have shut down? And, well, your heart's too nice. Mm-hmm. You care too much. What does a caring heart do?
What breaks? It hurts.
Mm-hmm. It hurts. It judges. It breaks itself apart, right? It wants to hold everybody else. It wants to fix everything. What does a heartless heart do? They don't care about nobody but themselves. Greatest, worst thing you could have, right? So even though, everything they did was from our output negative, in their own mind, they manifested it was positive.
Yeah.
That's the power of the mind right there.
And going back, some of the most successful people in the world, they're not out there for everybody else. They're out there for themselves.
Exactly. So why can't you be out there for yourself?
Yeah. Good question.
If you only manifested your next best thing instead of worrying so heavily about all the other stuff, wouldn't our positive manifests be tenfold?
Yeah.
So if you need 5 to 6 positive to offset one negative, we need 5 to 6 positive successful people to offset that one negative. So if we think of it in that term, we need to get as much great leadership up there as we can to help neutralize the earth, if you will. Mm-hmm. Keep it going, to sustain it, because or else it's going to go down. They already figured that out. That's why they have the world organizations where they're trying to make everything healthier and better, because they realized, hey, my carbon footprint ain't so hot. How about yours, Joe?
Yeah.
My carbon footprint sucks. If we all lived like me, we'd all die in 4 years. Oh. Well, I think a lot of people are living like us, Joe. And they started realizing that. And when you start doing your own carbon footprint, which we had to do in science and psychology, they have you do that in school to, again, expand your mind to, hey, you're greater than your little bubble. Be aware of it, please. If we all lived like Rosemary, what would the world look like?
Yeah.
Well, that smacks you in the gut real hard. Oh my God, 14 years old, we'd all be dead? And I thought I was living good. So it's just like, oh my gosh, and you're forced to change because living with that thought is terrible.
Yeah.
Wouldn't I rather live with the thought, hey, it could have been that, but guess what? I'm going to change my carbon footprint. I'm going to change my everyday activity, even if it's a little. Even if I'm changing, I'm not eating as much red meat. I'm changing the farm I am buying my meat from, if I do buy meat.
Yeah.
I'm, whatever it is, choosing something better that works for your lifestyle is the key goal, really, is keep choosing better. What I learned 5 years ago is not the same as I learned today. you know? So I'm continuously bettering it. You know, oh, wow, I thought I was supposed to mix this with eggs. Turns out you're not supposed to mix anything with eggs. Just freaking crack the egg. You know, like, oh my gosh, it was so simple all these years. I've just been adding all these calories and weird stuff to my eggs. So, you know, stuff I thought I was educated on, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you grow, obviously, you start realizing those things. And you're like, wow, I listened to these 8 people. I should have just listened to that one person, or I should have just listened to myself. You know, at the end of the day, what do most of us say? Oh, I knew that. Yeah. I knew I should have done that.
Or shouldn't have done that.
Exactly. I should have listened. Oh, I knew when that person said that something was weird. You know, just we had that thing, but we didn't follow it. We knew the whole time. We didn't listen to it. That's just the difference. Is some people are listening to it. Some people keep not listening to it. And at some point you say, oh, I didn't listen to my gut so many times that your brain kind of slaps itself and goes, hey, silly. Hey, wake up. You going to start listening to your gut, which is your second brain? Or are we just playing hot potato back and forth here? Yeah. You know, what's your goal here? Are you just going to keep ignoring me? That's when you get your gut issue, right?
Intuition is a big thing.
And it stems from your gut. So that's where 15, my gut shut down. I'm assuming that's when I stopped listening to my intuition. Yeah. You know? And then it unraveled to now when I started listening again. Yeah. So it's like it had to unravel its issues, my issues, to start listening. It's
you were listening to the doctor.
Yeah, I was listening to everybody else around me, and I lost who Rosemary was. So that tells me at that point, I probably had a shift. Oh, yeah, I did move. I moved to a bigger school at that age. Oh, yep, I lost who I was. I wasn't me. I had to fit in with them. You know, as I start looking at it, that's when Rosemary lost Rosemary also. I started trying to become and fit in with the crowd because I got bullied so much as a kid. We had moved again and I wanted to be cool. You know, I wanted to at least have one friend, you know? So that is when I started having the gut issues though. So it all ends up making sense at the end of the day when you unravel it all and you see that it was unraveling my story that I built up for myself.
Yeah, you might have had some kind of toxicity building up in you because of how much you're trying to fit in.
My negative self-image, I stopped believing in who I was. I stopped believing I had pretty eyes or whatever my dad had told me, and I just believed the bullying, right? I believed the acne bullying, this and that, and this is who I was. So the Eminem song, I am whatever you say I am, that's the truth in it, right? Yeah. We start becoming what everyone tells us, just like you become the food you eat. You literally start becoming your environment. You're like 70% environment, 30% born. That's about it. So if you are mostly your environment includes the people you hang out with, the music, the food you eat, the smells you smell, right? The animals you have, how you talk, how you act, how you talk to yourself. That's your environment. And that's 70% of your makeup now. So you really have to look at what your environment is because that's creating who you are. And if it's negative, well, you need to step back and say, hey, you know, at that point, I would have, if I was more knowledgeable then, you know, oh, I have a gut issue. What's going on around me? I would have popped out. I call it popping out of the bubble and looking around and observing versus being part of the story. You're now observing the story. You're the director. How do I want to direct this? Oh, now I'm going to pop back into the story. Oh, this is what we're going to do because I had to pop out for a second and go, wait. Something's not right here. You know, what am I doing wrong? We moved. My stomach's got issues. Well, it's not just your gut if you're eating the same food, obviously. Yeah. It's something else. It was my environment. So it honestly probably had almost nothing to do with the food we were eating. Yeah, my dad made homemade food all the time, you know, but it manifested into that.
Listening to you tell your story there and kind of reminiscing back to when I was a kid into my teenage years, I was a product of my environment. I had different friend groups I hung out with over different periods of my childhood into my teen years. And, you know, there was the need to fit in. There was the anxiety, the depression, the fear of rejection. And I don't think I really came into myself until I hit maybe my early to mid-20s when I figured out who's Tony going to be, what does Tony want to do with his life. And I kind of looked back at other kids and other families that didn't really worry about necessarily playing outside, doing what was fun. And, you know, those kids, they focused on their education, reading books. They looked in and focused on what they wanted to become. And those kids ultimately grew up to be more successful. They're the ones like the Elon Musks that are building businesses, making the world a better place. And, it was those people that didn't really care about what their friends thought or other people thought. They just cared about, who am I? What am I going to do? How am I going to impact this world? And that's the difference. And I think that's why you see a lot of kids nowadays. It seems like most kids have anxiety, depression. They deal with suicidal thoughts. And, it comes down to that negative energy that they're in and the perception of life.
Yeah, really. And a lot of these parents don't have the tools. They don't know. And then it's just this negative thing brewing because now there's anger and confusion on the parents' part. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Oh, I have to be doing something wrong. I have to fix my kid. Something's wrong. He's not right. Instead of looking at what we're feeding them, literally, not the food even, what are we feeding their brain? What are we feeding them for words? What music am I exposing them to? Am I exposing them to uplifting music, right? We switched ours from hip hop and R&B and stuff like that to, I listen to, it's called 24/7 365 radio or happy radio. There's a lot of Forrest Frank, a lot of Nick D, Andy Grammer, really uplifting music about life versus about sad relationships or people dying and stuff like that. We're all aware those things happen. I don't want to focus on that.
Yeah, because you're setting yourself up to live in an environment where that is your life.
That's your reality then. If you believe that's all that happens, I have to break up 8 times and we're going to get in fights and we're going to have this destructive relationship because it's normal.
If you listen to Taylor Swift, you're supposed to
then
have
it's
a lot
normal.
of breakups.
Yeah, then it's normal. But if you lived in my world, no, it's not normal. So it's just, again, you're 70%, you're going to believe your environment.
Yeah.
So it's whatever's feeding your brain, that's what they're going to believe. So again, if you and your spouse are always fighting, that's what your kids are seeing. If you're always huffing and puffing, that's teaching them to not be patient, and we don't know we're doing these things because in that moment we're in our bubble, right? We're not out the bubble going, what am I doing right now that is greatly affecting my kids? Well, you don't think about that usually. A lot of us weren't educated in that unless you did take sociology or psychology in high school. Or you had supportive parents and supportive things around you that were helping guiding you to that. Like, oh, be your best self. Oh, be you. No, a lot of us had parents that tried to make us them, So, and make us their environment and no, this is wrong and this is how you have to be. And so for most of America, it is self-discovery. It's who am I? What do I want to be? What do I believe in? Oh, I have a great work ethic. I am this. I love this. I love nature. This makes me happy without anybody around me. That's who I am. So I help my kids figure out what makes them happy without another person with them. You don't need somebody else to build onto it. That just adds character and excitement. What activities do you do that truly just put you in the zone? Get you to zen. Is it playing the guitar? Is it doing karate? Is it when you're on the soccer field? Is it when you're just playing on the computer and looking stuff up? Do you just really love doing that?
Could be reading a book.
Yep. Reading your Bible, reading your book, playing with your Hot Wheels cars, building your Lego sets. My youngest loves building Lego sets. That's his zen time. And he loves that. I love cleaning. I love that it makes my house feel calmer. There's no dust we're inhaling. It helps the allergens in the house. And I feel like I have a nice, fresh space then. So just really finding people's zen, what calms them, and what makes them who they believe they are.
And happiness comes from self.
Yeah.
You can't depend on anybody else. People can complement your life and complement your happiness. But if you rely on somebody else for your happiness, ultimately you compromise yourself.
Yeah, and it goes down to like we talked about earlier, believing in it. Do you believe what other people are telling you? When somebody says, oh, you look great today, or, oh, wow, looks like you lost some weight, you look awesome, you looked great before, but, I can tell you've been working on yourself. A lot of people switch to the name and go, wow, they thought I was fat before.
Yeah.
It's the only thing they heard in that whole conversation. When clearly that person did not mean, no, at all.
Yeah.
And because they still have that negative self-image, that's what the brain only heard. They didn't even hear the compliment.
And it doesn't matter if 1,000 people say the same thing. They go back to their self-image of, hey, I was fat, or I'm this, I'm that.
Yep. And even though they lost the weight, their image imprinted in their brain is still, I'm overweight, I'm nothing, nope, I can't get any. And it's just this monotone dialogue going on in the brain. But the moment we have that person, sometimes we got to get yelled at.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I've had to yell at a few friends, sit them down and go, wake up. What are you doing?
It's like in the movies when you slap people.
Literally, like, yeah, like on Bridesmaids where they're like, wake up, wake up, and they're like shaking her. And it's like, yeah, you need that friend sometimes. That's like, are you really good? This is how you're going to go down. We talked about it earlier. You're writing your story. And then what at the end? The end of your awesome story, you just laid down and died. That was it. There was no fight. There was no Superman came to save you. There was no, your heart opened up and you discovered it. Whatever your thing is, it was just like, this was it. You went through all these obstacles. And then at the end of the book, you just paid $25 for. The lady laid on her couch and that was her story. You probably wouldn't recommend that book to nobody.
No, not at all.
No. Like, oh, well, I thought, I saw her fighting and, well, if this was me, I would fight back. Well, okay, what is you? Yeah. So fight back.
Yeah.
And that's the point of the story is exactly. And you're doing that. You just lay down. You're the dead horse. You just, No, that's not the answer. And if you believe that's the answer, then that's your own story. Go for it. If that's how you want to end your book, I guess that's how you want to end your book. But when, the heavens came in and said, Rosemary, you got 5 minutes to live. What's your choice? I said, the heck I'm dying right now. I got a 3-year-old I got to take care of, right. And that was my inner dialogue. I had a choice. I didn't think I did. And it showed me I did have a choice. In that moment of life or death, I had a choice. I couldn't talk. I could text somebody. But I could have said, I can't call you when I'm going to die. But I texted somebody and they came to drive to get me. And I could have told the doctor, nothing's wrong with me, I'm fine. But guess what? I couldn't even talk. So they knew something was wrong with me. And so my inner dialogue changed from I'm dying to I'm living. Because if I was dying, I would have died. But I'm living, so I lived. So my inner dialogue went from you're born to die to I was born to live. So once you start switching your inner dialogue, you start seeing life as a much different perspective versus they call it the poor me, and the almost like the victim mode, right? And why is this happening to me? Well, guess what happens when you ask the universe why?
It happens.
You keep repeatedly showing you it, which is your cycle. So when I break down someone's cycle, I go, I bet you've asked yourself that question for a lot of years, haven't you? Yeah, how'd you know that?
And it's funny, I bet in most of those situations, they're fully aware of it.
Yeah, and they just want a different answer is what's happening. Is the answer keeps coming. No. And they keep choosing the same choices.
Some people go for help so somebody else can fix the problem until they fix it themselves. They need
and they're like, oh, you keep telling me the same thing the doctor told me and the priest told me and my mom told me. Gosh, you people suck.
Yeah.
Or you lower your ego down a minute there, bud. And that's where that comes out. Crank it down a notch. Sit down in your comfy chair. Let me read you a book about you.
Yeah.
And once we start talking to them about their own life and they don't like it,
they change the ending.
I go, that's your story. That's what you told me. I didn't tell me your story. I didn't live your story. That's what you dialogued to me. You wrote the same chapter, 15 chapters now. It just has a different scenario. But you just wrote the same story. But this one, you were in a desert, drowning, somehow in a puddle that you created. This one, you were in the ocean, dying from heat stroke on a random rock in it, that you don't know how it got there. This one, and you start breaking down. Nobody put, you swam to the rock and died. You drove to the desert and had heat stroke. That was all your own doings at the end of the day. So when we start breaking down their own chapters of their book and going, do you see how you just keep choosing this same choice? But because you this is your choice in the circle, right? That's the same choice you keep choosing. Oh, but here's one path. Oh, here's another path. Oh, here's another path. But each path keeps coming back to the same circle. Jump out of that circle. Again, popping out of the bubble. New perspective, new choice. Please choose a new choice. You know, that's us on the outside shaking the person.
Yeah.
Choose something different. You know? I got cheese or no cheese. How do I get rid of this stomach ache? Honey, can you pick some cheese up?
Yeah.
Stop buying it. You know, stop buying the bread. Stop buying the cheese. Stop going to the bar. Just don't do that thing you normally do. Do something different for once, and you're going to have a different outcome. It's I don't know if it's going to be better or worse, but you're going to learn something different.
So why do you feel like people get trapped in that cycle?
Because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
Because if I were to choose something different, I can't predict the outcome. And we want to be predictable.
Yeah.
So we don't think we're predictable, but if we can predict what's going to happen next and go, I know that's going to happen, guess what? Do you know why you know that's going to happen? Because you've done it every day for the last 15 years. That's why you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know that John's cheating on you because Joe, Bob, Susan, but all these people it happened to. But you think the outcome's going to be different. Yet you chose the abusive guy at the bar, of course, where you met all the other guys, and you chose the one with the tattoos because you thought he was hot when he had a beard, and he was single and divorced 6 times, just like the last guy. And, you just keep choosing usually the same thing, but it's a different person.
Yeah.
Oh, the story, it's going to be, this is what our brain does, and I know you've done it. We've all done it. It's going to be different this time.
Yeah.
We have that inner hope. The hope. It's going to be different this time. This time it's going to be different. Well, if the scenario's set up the same and the past's the same, here's my funny secret. It's going to be the same.
See, that's why I'm not a fan of hoping for things. There's no action steps involved.
No.
If you don't take action, hope is never going to manifest. Very rarely.
Yeah.
But it's going to be by something beyond your control.
Yeah.
But doing is what you need to do. It's that simple. You need to make a choice. You need to make some changes. You need to be committed to it. And I think that's what most people in this country struggle with is making choices and being accountable for your choices.
Well, and they want an instant gratification usually. They don't want to put in the work. They'll go sit and train with somebody and do that kind of work. Go build you a house, right? Or sit on a computer and learn some dialogue for a week straight to go do a job. But if I told you to do that job, you had to listen to calming music for 10 minutes a day, do 20 minutes of mindful yoga, eat a fresh plate of fruit and veggies instead of something with a hard meat in it, and go on an hour-long walk in nature, and that was your come up, well, you'd have a greater outcome. You have a greater desire. You're going to start feeling better. But that's not what we tell our people to train in, right? So if we started telling people that, hey, when I go to the doctor, just do this.
Yeah.
Or just take this, we want a gratification right away. Well, it isn't that easy. And the easy part is that you have a minuscule choice. A split second to just say, oh, my muscle memory of my body really wants me to do this because I've done it for 15 years and I believe it's the correct thing. But guess what? I now know it's not because I did do it for 15 years. And I don't know how many more years I have to keep doing it to convince myself it's wrong.
Yeah.
But I hope this is the last time, And once people break it down to that level and you start popping out of your bubble instead of sitting in the bubble, you can start making some healthier choices usually just by observing your own story. Just write it out like it's a book. Talk to yourself. Tell yourself your day's story. If you didn't like that story you did today, rewrite it tomorrow,
That's right.
And that's literally, it's as easy as that. You can't go back and rewrite it, but you can write that next page differently. You can make better words in it. If you made a lot of swear words in the first half of your story, what if you want a more peaceful ending? You know? So it's really how you want your ending to be. I didn't want a stressful ending to my story. I had a stressful beginning. I said, this cannot go on forever. Like, when does this end? Yeah. That was my question. And the universe showed me. It ends today. It ends when you want it to end. That's the only time it can't end, is when you say it's ending today. And that's it. You just got to do it. You got to end it.
And I think, one of the biggest issues that we see with people now is, in this country, everything's so easy. Everything's so comfortable. People go and they turn on Netflix and they watch a show right when they want to watch it. You don't have to wait for it to come on. You don't have to be structured and disciplined to catch it every week. Same thing goes into like food. It's so easy to get fast food on the way home, or, do a Uber Eats and have food delivered to you. People don't want to take the time to grocery shop and get whole ingredients and make stuff from scratch and eat it. We have smartphones that bring information to us instantly. It's all about instant gratification and comfort.
Yep.
And changing your diet, something that's so simple. Some people find it to be impossible because it's not easy, it's not comfortable. And it's as easy as, for me, I'm not going to sit here and talk on this topic like I'm not guilty of it. My poison is soda.
Yep.
I can't kick it. I can. I know I can, but I'm not willing to put in that effort. I've done other things to change my diet. I've incorporated more green vegetables. I try to eat healthier. I very rarely eat fast food now. And looking back at a past version of myself when I used to work in the mall, that's where I had the most stomach issues. I was probably eating Hot Pockets, pizza rolls at home. And then when I'd go on my lunch break, I'd eat in the food court. You had all types of chemicals and nastiness in that food. And, I'm not saying people can't go out and eat fast food.
Yeah.
Once in a while, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
But at some point, when that becomes your life and all the food that you're intaking is stuff that's made in a food court or at a restaurant, and it's not going to be made with the best ingredients. And at some point, your body becomes concentrated. And I noticed this when I worked in the mall, is I would eat my food from the food court, and maybe 20 minutes later, I'm running to the restroom. And for a period of my life, my dad has Crohn's disease, and that's something I watched him deal with over his lifetime. I thought I had Crohn's disease because one of the symptoms is diarrhea. And so at one point I thought I had Crohn's disease. And what it turned out to be was, when I got away from the food court and I started eating better, I noticed that I didn't have diarrhea all the time anymore. And, to this day, I've made that commitment to myself that I'm going to eat better. I may not eliminate all the bad stuff out of my diet, but it's to the point that my body's consistent. I've felt a difference. And the second I go sideways, and I eat at a fast food restaurant or something, I can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Or if I go to a friend's house or a family member's house and I eat where they use like canola oils and stuff like that. The next day, I'm like, man, I'm going to the bathroom.
I can't even make it through the night if they don't cook with healthy oils.
Yeah.
Like, moving to the South made it very apparent, because we only use avocado and coconut oil in our house. Yeah. And I just had my blood drawn, and they were like, wow, your good cholesterol is insane. Like, go you, whatever you're doing. And I was like, thank you. And they're like, your bad cholesterol is almost zero. Like, I got like nothing. But my good cholesterol is off literally the whole chart. It's completely filled. And they're like, it says good or bad. She's like, it doesn't matter. You can have as much good of that as you want. Yeah. And I was like, thanks. But yeah, it's just, I with the health and wellness, it goes right in tune with your, the Crohn's disease. So that reminded me that it was the start of my gallbladder issues. So how your gallbladder works is your gallbladder processes your bile, your fats, and lipids, right? So that's why your side hurts, right? When your left side, little cramp, fats, little cramp, right? We get this little, you're like, I'm fine, right? That was occurring to me. That's how I knew my gallbladder wasn't working. So I was like, Dad, I get this weird thing every time we eat something greasy. If we go out to eat, if we eat our homemade food, it's not really bad, but we just went and got a burger and, my side hurts. And it would literally like hunch over and then it'd be like 5 seconds. I'm like, I'm fine. He's like, what the heck? We went in, my gallbladder was dormant. It wasn't even working.
Wow.
Yeah. Like nothing was happening. It was doing nothing. It was just sitting there. I actually had to go on a 3-month diet for them to remove it.
Oh, wow.
It had so much buildup because it hadn't been working.
Did it have like stones built up too?
No, it was just it was just fats and lipids sitting in it. It was just doing nothing. Nothing could pass through it.
Wow.
So that was my pain, was it was huge and going to explode.
And during that time of your life, did you go out to eat a lot?
No. That's why we were like, I don't know. It just stopped working. But my dad did cook with canola oil. So even though we ate homemade foods, that's why I see the blessing in it, because I would probably be obese right now. I love food.
Yeah.
I would be huge. Especially after having the 2 kids. I gained 85 pounds with both kids. I'm 5'3". If anyone out there is wondering, I'm not a large person.
No.
So yeah, like to endure that and then have to go on this health journey, I see it as a blessing. Like, thank you for removing my gallbladder and my appendix, I guess.
Because you never know what.
Because I would have never known. I would still be cooking with what my dad cooked with, thinking, butters and stuff and dairy and things were still good for me. Yep. We do avocado oil. We do avocado oil butter. We do gluten-free when we bake. We do gluten-free baking powders because although homemade, if there's gluten in it, is great. If you look, people are sensitive to glutens and stuff, not because gluten's bad, because there's so much in everything we're eating, our body can't possibly process that. Mm-hmm. It is just building up and building up. So like back then you'd have like a loaf of bread for like the whole week is what you'd nibble on. Yeah. And it was a homemade piece of bread. Now, I know people that eat 2 full sandwiches in a day, and then they'll eat some more bread with their dinner, and then they'll have a piece of toast with their egg. Yeah. Well, you just ate like a half a loaf of bread in a day.
Yeah, their intake must be 80%
exactly.
or more carbs.
And then you ate some rice, and then you ate some more grains, and you had some oatmeal. What in the world? You think your little gallbladder can process all of that? And that's crazy.
The high fructose corn syrup, the regular corn syrup. You got the dyes. You got everything that your body's trying to process.
My kid, best example of the dyes, my 8-year-old, we thought, honestly, like this was my fear in my brain, and it might sound silly to some people, but I grew up in a family where my dad didn't want anything wrong with his kids. He was one of those dads, right? So I had a fear that my kid may have had autism, which obviously there's nothing wrong with a kid who has autism. Yeah. But I was scared I wasn't doing the right things to help him. Yeah. Like I was trying to make him out to be this quote unquote normal kid, and what if I was fighting what he was trying to do type thing, if that makes sense. I felt like I was like failing as a mom. I was like, what if there is something wrong with him, or not wrong, but how our brain goes, well, there's something wrong with him. I need to bring him to the doctor. What's going on with my kid? I thought like I had just not known how to parent pretty much, which is what a lot of parents feel like. And I was prepared for them to say, yes, he's got this and this, here's the plan moving forward, because he was just so wild. He wasn't really comprehending or listening to anything we were saying. He was more in tune with just colors and feeling, stuff like that. So of course I was like, he may be on the spectrum. I'm not sure. I'm trying everything. I did with my first kid, but he's just out there, I don't know what the heck to do with this kid. And years later, at age 4, he's now 8, halfway through his life, we cut out, when I changed my diet, we changed our whole household's diet. We cut out dairy, we cut out dyes, we cut out everything. We just started giving him natural Mary Ruth focus drops. No melatonin, because that's bad for you. Sorry, I'll get on that a different day. But just really realizing my kid was becoming what he ate, right? And once I took all that away, we only have water in our house and unsweetened almond milk if they do need milk for cereal or cooking. But
Which
they don't.
Is good, by the way.
Yeah, they don't just
almond milk.
Yeah, they don't just like snack on it. And we buy the unsweetened. It doesn't have the added sugar. Just got the natural. We don't have candy and a bunch of crap in our house, so they don't have all that stuff. So their sugars are their potato that turns to sugar. Their piece of bread, if they decide to have bread that day, that might turn to sugar, but most of the time I have to throw our bread out. They don't even eat it that much, which I'm perfectly fine with. I make homemade most things, but sometimes I'm a human too, right? We got to just go to the store and buy stuff. I just buy the better stuff. The Simply yogurts that don't have the added stuff. The juices that have the least amount of sugar, because if you look at your juicy juice, holy cow, stop giving it to your babies, please.
So I got a juicy juice story real quick. My youngest sister, she's not going to watch this, but
It will rip your teeth out.
that's exactly what happened
Yeah,
to her.
it'll rot all
She
over
had
her.
it. It was concentrate. I think you had to mix it with water a little bit, and her baby teeth, they were stained, almost looked like they were deformed, and I think she lost them early too because of the juicy juice.
Yeah. That's what one of my friend's kids had to have all her kids' front teeth ripped out and the rest capped because she would sleep, give her watered down apple juice instead of milk. She's like, I heard milk rots your teeth out. I said, for the love of all things holy, come on now. What does sugar do? And just like, and like eating of a friend who also, she lets her kid eat like, oh, she's eating fruit, so it's good, like 6 apples a day.
Yeah. That's a lot of apples.
Lord have mercy. Did you look up?
I think the phrase is an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, I'm like,
I don't know about 6.
you don't know how much sugar you're intaking. Like, sugar is still sugar, honey. It's still going to rot your teeth out. It's still going to make you hyper, whether it be added or natural. You just don't want the added because there's already enough natural. That's why you don't want the added.
Yeah.
It's not necessary is what we're trying to tell you. A fruit, you don't add more sugar on your fruit, do you? It's usually sugary enough when you go to eat it. So some people add it to their fruit salad to keep them preserved longer. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will sprinkle a little sugar on there. Preserves it because it's part of it,
Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't need more sugar to the sugar usually.
It's like a caramel apple with sprinkles on it.
Yeah,
That is
it's
way
like,
too
man,
much.
like, what are you doing? So it's like, you wouldn't eat a dinner usually with potatoes and a side of noodles and rice, would you?
No, that's straight carbs.
That sounds silly. You usually have one.
Yeah.
So when you start breaking it down to that, it's like, no, I wouldn't intake all that extra sugar. And why the heck do you need 6 apples in a day? And well, you don't, and it is bad. It's moderation.
Yeah.
Fruit's great, but fruit still has sugar.
Correct.
And like to be oblivious to that is silly too. So you have to do things in moderation. Be aware of your gut health. Be aware of the sugars. Read your labels. Even in wasabi, there's blue dye 1.
That's crazy.
Like, I can't find a wasabi without it in it, you guys. So if you find one, great, give me it. It's crazy. I'm like, well, I guess we're not buying wasabi. I refuse. I don't care if it's the last ingredient. I'm not buying it. It's not necessary.
It's amazing, like when you flip packages and start looking at labels, just how much stuff, when you start reading it, it disgusts me.
Mm-hmm. My kids can sit and read. They sit and read the Bible now. They sit and do breathing techniques. They do not have ADHD. They do not need to be medicated. It was all the dyes I was feeding them. Even my kids can taste them now. They're like, Mom, they thought there was dyes in their multivitamins I got them because they're so in tune with it. I said, no, that's actually carrot and pomegranate and this. And I verified and, because they're like, Mom, I don't want them to taste like dye. And I was like, no, you're just tasting probably the natural sugar coating on the outside from the fruit. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a kid's multivitamin. They need to make it still taste good, honey. It's a bunch of fruit extracts. Yeah. They're like, oh, okay. But it's so embedded in their brain what a dye tastes like that they don't want it. They're like, they can't drink Gatorade. They don't want these things in their body because they're like, the candies for Easter we end up throwing away. It's just they don't eat it because they can taste it so much and they see their skin change, they get more attitude, they get more hyper, they can't focus, they're not listening to me that week. Whatever it is causing. If you look up any of the dyes, you can see the side effects, and it is true. It's true in my family. I have 2 completely different kids that had completely different side effects for them, and it was true for both of them. Mm-hmm. It's true for me. I had red dye one week. I am a product of a father who was obsessed with red dye. He also died from cancer. Here we go, right? It's number 1 causer for cancer. Hello. But I loved red dye, and I saw how addictive red dye is.
Yeah, certain candies especially.
Yeah, it's not even the candy. It is red dye. It is addictive. Mm-hmm. So it's not even like the flavor. If it was just the flavor, well, I would just love normal strawberry flavored things. Mm-hmm. So when you break it down again to that level, and you just look at it, it's like, no, I'm addicted to the dye. Yeah. That's addictive. Sugar's addictive. The number 1 killer in America, hello. Sugar is causing everyone's diseases. It's only a disease because you won't cut out the food because you just don't want to. You'd rather live with the big puffy legs and the oxygen tank and the this and the that instead of just changing your food you bought from the store.
It's as simple as that.
It's not even gross food. It usually tastes almost the same.
Yeah.
It's like a week of food, like I call it taste bud training. And you do about a week or 2 weeks of it, just telling yourself, no, it's fine. And it's normal. And then after about a month of it, when you go to try to eat the last food you ate before, it's all of a sudden disgusting to you.
There was at one point in my life that I did get off soda. And I remember the first time I got back on it, it was disgusting.
Oh, I could feel it burning me thinking of soda.
Yeah.
If I tried it, this will be year 5. I haven't drank soda.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Wish.
And like,
I'm not even gonna wish. I'm gonna get there.
You are gonna, because like once you're off it for so long, I don't even think of it.
Yeah.
You know, somebody else around me can drink a soda, and I'll be like, all I can think of is the terrible things that are going into their body, and it makes me go, please God, don't let them die from that. Please don't let them die from that. You know, just let them be healthy and wean off of it, and they're gonna learn at some point that this caramel color is made of the worst things in the whole world. You know, like if you look up how they make caramel, my gosh, it's terrible.
And the high fructose corn syrup is terrible too. And you know, I know all these things too. And you know, again, I'm guilty of the comfort side of it. That is my go-to. I don't smoke. I don't do anything else that's really harmful to my body, except for drinking soda. That's really my poison. And I will say it's poison, and I know it's poison, but what I always fall back to is, you know, that memory in my mind. You know, you grab the cold can, you pop it, you hear the noise, you know, the refreshing feeling I get drinking it. That's so ingrained and embedded in my mind, and that's what feeds my addiction.
Yeah.
Is that feeling of satisfaction drinking it, and just seeing the can, you know, is refreshing when I know I'm about to drink it. And at some point, I'll get off of it, you know, and I'm really going to push by the end of this year to get off of it altogether.
Yeah, because like that's why we talk about like being comfortable with the uncomfortable is knowing that at the end of it, it's going to be greater than when we're in it, you know, and that's the outlook we have to have in life is somehow I can't see it right now, but I can feel better than I feel right now. Mm-hmm. Like there is a possibility I can feel what some people say is 10 times better cutting out this one thing for that long and then forgetting about it and then seeing first off why it's my crutch. Oh, it's refreshing in this and that. But as a life coach, I already know it's deeper than that, you know? So, you know, in my brain, I'm going to, it's your crutch probably because it comforts you. Why does it comfort you? It brings you back to a childhood memory. What's that childhood memory? Why do you need to go back to that memory to feel comforted in that moment? Mm-hmm. So that's where, you know, a person who
where puzzle coach comes into play.
It just pieces it together and goes, oh, it's a child comfort thing. Why did you need that comfort as a child? And that is your childhood or adulthood holdback is whatever that moment you go to for the childhood is. So that's what's potentially still holding the greater self back as an adult is those little crutches, because we're always usually doing it because of some sort of childhood comfort or what we thought was comfort because of a trauma. You know, a bad situation, we comforted it with food. A bad situation, we comforted it with a soda. A bad situation, I'm going to go outside, pop a soda, go on my skateboard. You know, whatever that thing is, it's a comfort for a reason. It made us comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. So figuring that out is where we're usually able to detox off that thing a little bit easier and saying, I'm not going to let my 6-year-old self who was sad and just wanted the soda to go against what my mom said to hold me back today. You know, and once we acknowledge where that thing came from, whatever it is, then it's usually very simple, you know, because we're able to see why we do it. And we're able to see it in the moment. Like, oh, I was with somebody and they made me uncomfortable and then I went and got a soda right away. Yeah. You know, just like when people smoke a cigarette, they smoke it at a certain time usually. Mm-hmm. So it's like we usually go to the soda at a certain time and just acknowledging it, popping out of our bubble and going, oh, I drink a soda every time this happens. It makes it way easier than to say, oh, I don't need it, I guess. Yeah. You know, because we're usually doing it for a reason that is in our control.
And I know my reason. Yep. You know, I've already self-assessed.
Yep.
When I wake up before I go to work, when I go to lunch break, right after work, sometimes during a stressful day, I have a soda at work.
Yep.
You know, the days off, I can get by with a lot less soda.
Yep.
and I tell myself foolishly on the day off, yeah, I can kick it. I can stop today. And then I go back to work or go back to whatever stressful situation it is, and it all just comes back.
Yep. So it's just replacing it with a healthier habit is what we like to tell people. So all of us have habits. All of us have our thing we do. It's just really replacing it with something healthier that isn't going to harm or hinder us in any way. So that's why they did come up with the fidgets, right? And the stuff, because what possible harm could a fidget have on somebody besides maybe carpal tunnel if they do it every day
That's
for the
true.
next 50 years, you know? But in reality, there really isn't a negative thing that could outcome from that. So it's not hurting or harming anybody in the changing or exchanging of energy, if you will, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if anything, a fidget spinner allows people to focus more on what's in front of them and passively focus, their mind, their sidetracked mind onto something physical.
Yep, that's pretty much the purpose of it, so that they can shut off their mind. Like we talked about earlier, it's a little bit harder because I have so many electro waves going through there and so many things trying to process versus somebody who has a calmer mind. They're not trying to process as much because they know how to shut off some of those doorways. Well, somebody with more of a hyperactive mind just can't.
Yeah.
And it's their job to also learn what distracts them enough so that they can get their work done is pretty much the goal, is how can I work with it? Not make it go away. It's not going to go away. This is part of my body, but it's happening for a reason. It's trying to tell me something at every point. It's my job to try to calm it enough to listen to it, to calm it enough to let it work with me, not against me. So that's where, we did the dye cutting out and stuff with my son, and we found out there was nothing wrong with him, and he's a completely different kid now. He doesn't have ADHD. He was not on the spectrum. And although there are many kids who are, my kid was not a product of that, and they were trying to make him one. Yeah. And from the outside eye, it did look like that. But from the inside home life, going, no, this isn't my kid, I knew something was very wrong, and I advocated for him because I said, no, I refuse to watch my kid have to detox those as an adult also. Yeah. Like, absolutely not. I know adults now that can't figure out their medications. I am not letting my kid try to medicate himself on this type of thing. He doesn't know how he's supposed to feel, So
medication should always be the very last step.
Exactly. Like, I can't figure it out. Help me while I figure it out. Yeah. That was actually the goal of medication, if you look back at documentaries and stuff, was to alleviate the thing until you figured the solution out. But it became so easy that people started using that as the solution versus actually figuring out the solution.